Welcome everybody to episode 3 of Quick Hits with Roy. Roy Bingham, the executive chairman of BDSA, is here to speak with us, the smartest guy in the room, as I like to call him. And we're going to be talking about a report that BDSA just published about the top trends to expect in 2021. This report is available for free download at bdsa.com and has 10 really strong predictions for the coming year ahead that people should be paying attention to. Roy, welcome to the program again.
Thanks. Great to be here, George.
All right. Well, so there's 10 of them. We want to keep this and live up to our brand promise of quick hits. So let's talk about 2 of them in particular. One of your predictions is that cannabis will see hundreds of new brands and thousands of new products launched this year. Tell us a little bit more of what you expect to see for the consumer to be able to enjoy this year.
Yeah, well, recent history, of course, continues to tell us quite a lot about what's going to happen in the near future. Obviously, there are changes like federal changes and things that are pending. But if we continue the trends of the last year, for example, in California, in the first 9 months of the year, there were 24,000 cannabis products sold.
Wow.
That compares to 17,000 in the same period the year before. So 7,000 new items that were created and sold on the market. And those came from a little over 1,000 different brands. And that meant that about 200 new brands launched in California in that 12-month period. So that's just the California market. Obviously, we're seeing tremendous expansion elsewhere.
Yeah, doing the math on that, so you're seeing 7,000 new products from 1,000 brands. So you're seeing that, most of these brands are coming out with around 7 SKUs on average for a branded product. Across obviously multiple product categories. And California is obviously a very big, hot, exciting market. As BDSA has reported in the past, it's still estimated that, 50 to 70% of that market is still operating in the illicit market. So the upside still remains tremendously huge. Are you seeing some of these brands come out of the market and fizzle out? Or are there's just such strong demand that anybody kind of throwing a picture and a name on a product can get some sales traction?
Yes, so we are seeing some that fail, of course, and we have done, constantly. There's a new name appears and then there's no sales 6 months later. But those are the brands that just don't really get any traction. They get to $1,000 of sales and then they disappear. Okay. The vast majority that get to $100,000 in sales continue.
So that's kind of a good benchmark for our audience to understand. Once you kind of hit that 100,000, threshold, you're kind of established yourself, and that's where you really need to get your first hurdle is to get to that number. Roy, keeping with the brands and talking about another one of your predictions for 2021 is that you are expecting to see strong regional brands will outgrow single state brands. And you're really going to start seeing the emergence of these national brands, or at least what we can put forth as a national brand in our current state regulated market.
Yeah, that's right. So, in the last 6 months, there were 11 brands that had consumer sales of more than $30 million. So still not many massive companies out there. That doesn't include the multi-state operators' own proprietary brands. But of those 11 that I mentioned, 9 of them grew very rapidly last year. 2 did not do so well, actually. But on average of those 11, they doubled in size last year. Wow. So they're coming along very strongly. And we expect to see them expanding from the domestic state where they got started into a region. And then we're already seeing some that are going national and are in their 5, 6, 7 different states by now.
Yeah, I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask you which 2 didn't do well. I know you wouldn't answer that question anyways. But, looking at how these companies are kind of going about their strategy, I imagine that we do have the larger MSOs that are creating a kind of a parent organization that are creating subsidiary organizations within the state, so they truly own those brand operations in those markets, often sometimes retail and brand markets in the cases like Curaleaf and others. But then, for kind of the earlier stage guys and people that do have those single state, brands that have gained some traction, they're really, do you know if they're primarily looking to do this through licensing deals, or are they actually trying to acquire and own the assets in the other states?
I think some have had some experience with licensing deals that haven't really worked very well for them. It's very hard to find a partner whose interests are completely aligned with your own interests. And I know a number of companies have said, well, that fizzled. It didn't really work out for us very well. And so they're tending to go to more of a control model where they're actually setting up operations in a new state, even sending staff into that new state in order to build a new asset that they control themselves. Of course, depending on how they control it because of the local laws with regard to who can own a cannabis company.
Yeah, and manufacturing any type of controlled food product. I mean, having the ability to create consistency on that product from market to market is so critical for their brand reputation, right? So that would make sense that I would think that a lot of them would want to kind of have a deeper sense of control instead of just borrowing somebody's name. But so as this starts to evolve and when do you think that we're going to see when do we crown somebody a king and say that they're truly a national brand? What do you think that threshold looks like?
I'm not really sure what the definition of a national brand would be in the cannabis industry because we don't have a national market yet. But, in my mind, when somebody's in the 10 largest states, they're basically a national brand at that point. I don't see anyone who's there yet. By the end of this year, it may be that one or two of them will be. It's the challenge of setting up those operations in those extra 3 or 4 states, because there are several that are already in 5 or 6 states now.
And a big part of that's going to be access to capital and investment into the industry. One of the things that, speaking to a lot of investors in the space on a fairly frequent basis, I almost categorically see that they are looking to invest into brands right now. We are emerging as a CPG industry, and I think you kind of answered my question by not answering it. We don't really get to crown somebody as a national brand until we have a national market. So, with the hopeful passage of the Safe Banking Act this year, access to that capital, for states to take their operations, move to the next state, for the large public companies to continue to raise capital, to expand their footprint is going to be a critical part this year. So, again, I want to thank the state of Georgia for their wise and decision on electing 2 Democratic senators for that state. That's going to help us in the cannabis industry tremendously this year. And Roy, any closing remarks on what you see in the future of brands?
Well, I do want to say that really a brand is not, whether or not it is a brand and is a national brand, it's not really based upon how big you are or how much your sales are. It's actually really based on what consumers think. So national surveys of consumers where consumers recognize your brand, or primarily where they volunteer that they know your brand. That's what really tells you whether you are an established brand. And at the moment, there's no brand in the United States that yet qualifies in CPG sense as a brand. The interesting thing will be, well, maybe by next year, there will be some that have national awareness to a sufficient level among consumers that they qualify as a national brand.
That's fantastic. Well, listen, as part of MJ Brand Insights and our event division, MJ Unpacked, we are looking forward to returning to live events. Our events are exclusively for brand and retail executives. We do want to help support, foster, and elevate the subsegment in the industry that I think is the most important, last business exchange before we reach the hero in our journey, which is the consumer. And as you said, creating that consumer recognition and transparency and trust with brands is going to be a key part of our success as an industry. So again, people, please go to www.bdsa.com and you can download their 2021 predictions. And Roy Bingham, thank you again. We'll see you in a few weeks.
Thanks a lot, George. Pleasure to be here. Can't wait to press the flesh and see people in person soon.
Yes, onward and in person. All right. Thanks, Roy.